Welcome back, Hooligans. We're here once again. My name is Joe, joined once again by my co-host Ryan, and we're here to bring you our review of the Amazon Prime show Invincible. Ryan had watched it first. He turned me onto it. I had some time. I knocked out all 8 episodes. After I started it, I got really hooked, and we watched all of it and got it done fairly quickly, so we were able to do this review. And this is what we're going to give you. So, Ryan, you're the one who watched it first. What did you think of Invincible?
I didn't really know what to expect. I first heard about it because there was a review from Jeremy Johns on it. And
had you watched that review?
The way he described it, he just said, yeah, well, I watched most of it. I actually stopped at one, when he was saying that if he bothered to explain it, it would just sound like a generic superhero cartoon and you wouldn't know anything about it. Like there's basically nothing you can say about it without spoiling what it is, other than saying, well, it's a version of Earth and there's like a Justice League and there's like a Superman and there are these different characters and stuff like that, which, yeah, sounds pretty generic when you put it that way. So, but he was like, it's nuts. Like, it's totally not what it seems. So I went and watched it. And it was just something to kill time. And I wound up watching all 8 episodes in one sitting. Well, that's not true. I might have got up to get a beer or something at one point. And yeah, it gave me a lot of like The Boys vibes and stuff like that. Really interesting. Very different.
It was when I watched the first episode, and we're probably, being this is a review and we talk a lot about, we try to get in depth on things, we're just going to be spoiling this. So just so you know off tops, this is going to be not a spoiler-free review. We're totally spoilers ahead. So you have been warned.
Mm-hmm.
You had me watch it, and I'm watching this first episode, and kind of like what you said, I'm like, well, this seems like the Justice League, and there's all these characters that remind you of other characters. The Superman, the Wonder Woman, the Batman. Like, what are they doing here? And it wasn't until basically the end of the first episode, and I was like, what just happened? And that's the moment it really hooked me. In the beginning, the very first thing it reminded me of was an old Kurt Russell movie called Sky High, which was Kurt Russell, Bruce Campbell movie called Sky High. It's really pretty good for what it is, and it's definitely a more kid-oriented movie along the lines of probably Shark Boy and Lava Girl or Spy Kids, things like that. But okay. It was well done. It was a fun superhero movie. You had this kid, he was like waiting to see if he was going to get his powers, and eventually he does, and there's shenanigans and things happen. It really reminded me of that in the beginning. I'm like, oh, they're kind of ripping that off hard. And then the end of the first episode happened, and I was like, whoa. And after that point, it really had me sucked in. I will say there's a lot of names in this show as far as actors who I recognized.
Yeah.
So you've got J.K. Simmons,
Mark Hamill,
man himself, who plays Omni-Man, their version of Superman, who I was glad didn't have all Superman powers. He didn't do like freeze breath or laser eyes, but for all intents and purposes, he was Superman. They had John Hamm. He was in it. Did you know who he was? In the very beginning,
No.
There's 2 security guards, this black security guard and this white guy, and the white guy is talking about like his son, who's not really his son, and they're just starting to have this relationship.
Yeah, and going on it.
Right. That was played by John Hamm, and I noticed it because on Prime I like touched my phone and it popped up with the ad. I'm like, oh, that's John Hamm, and because it was John Hamm voicing him, I assumed that, oh, well, this guy's going to get powers, and no. That was not how any of it played out. He just happened to play this character. There was Zazie Beetz, who played Domino in Deadpool 2. There was Sandra Oh, who I have seen. I can't think of anything off the top of my head that she's been in, but I know I've seen that name. I know I've seen her in things. She played the main character. Mark Grayson is the main character in this. Played his mom. You've got Walter Goggins, who played Cecil So he's like the head of the government organization that is working with superheroes. You've got Zachary Quinto, who played in the original show
Yes,
Heroes.
as Robot.
He played Robot and
Yeah,
was.
and he was Spock in the new Star Trek. Yeah, I recognize his voice right away.
You have Clancy Brown, who was the mean head guard in Shawshank Redemption, and he was the sergeant, the drill sergeant in Starship Troopers. So I've liked him in the things that I've seen him in. Mark Hamill was in it. He voiced one of the
Isn't he
characters.
also? Isn't Clancy okay? When I think of Clancy Brown, I think about Detroit Become Human
Oh,
because he's a
okay.
detective in that.
Is he? I never actually played it.
But isn't he? Didn't he also voice Mr. Krabs on SpongeBob?
Oh, I don't know. I don't watch SpongeBob. I don't. I hate it. No, I'm
I'm
not a
pretty sure.
SpongeBob
I'm
fan.
pretty
I'm
sure he
sorry.
did. I don't. Hey, SpongeBob memes are in style right now. Let me see. Clancy Brown.
I mean, you're not wrong. I like SpongeBob memes, but excuse me, doesn't mean I like SpongeBob.
Yeah. Yep. Mr.
Seth
Krabs.
Seth Rogen is in it, and as soon as I heard his voice as this other
Yeah, he's the
alien
alien.
creature, that interaction. The couple of those was good. I know you're not a big Seth Rogen fan, but I thought that was pretty fun. And one
Yeah.
other voice that
I like that
I
character. I like the
recognized.
interactions they had.
Oh, go ahead.
No, I was just gonna say it took
Okay.
me till their second interaction to recognize who he was. I really liked the character, and like he said that, like the way he shows up and he's like, "Hey, did you get rid of the mustache? You're here early."
Right. That
Okay.
was it was fun, and I recognized. Oh my gosh! I'll totally butcher his name, but Dajimin Hanzu. He was the leader of the Martians. He was the guy who played in. He's
Mm.
been in a bunch. He was in Blood Diamond with what's his name? Uh, oh my gosh! I can see his face. He's in those memes that I love. Uh, who starred in DiCaprio? He was in Blood Diamond with DiCaprio. He was in Gladiator with Russell Crowe. He played Korath the Pursuer in original Guardians of the Galaxy.
Oh yeah, I know who you're talking about.
Yeah, he's been in a number of
Yeah,
things. As soon as I heard his voice, I'm like, oh, I bet that's him.
I can't. Yeah, I'm not sure. I mean, I know you said his name. I don't know how to pronounce it.
Yeah, I probably butchered it. I apologize if I butchered it. But it had a lot of people,
Yeah.
and I was surprised. I was like, wow, this kind of got some names attached to it. And one that I really enjoyed, uh, he played the character Rexplode, Jason Mantzoukas, but he plays on Brooklyn Nine-Nine a character, and he's fantastic. He was really good on
Hmm.
that show. I really enjoy that show, and I heard his voice. I'm like, oh my god, I know that voice, and I had looked at him. I'm like, oh, it's him, and he was great. I liked a lot of the characters in this. I was afraid it was going to get a little teeny bopperish, and I guess in parts it kind of
Hmm.
did because you are dealing with the main character who's in high school, and he's got other friends who are in high school, and you've got other superhero groups that are the younger groups that are the up and coming groups, like the Young Avengers you would have, or in the boys comics they had younger groups of superheroes who, because we're dealing with like teens and teens with superpowers, they were kind of jackasses in a way. But it didn't it
Hmm.
didn't turn into too much of that, and I just ended up really enjoying it.
Yeah. I Well, first off, what happened to no notes? You said you had no notes and you just rattled off everybody in the cast who was noteworthy. I was just going to say, like, yeah, I recognize Seth Rogen and, J.K. Simmons, Zachary
IMDb
Quinto,
is right
Mark
here.
Hamill's the Taylor.
Like
I know.
other than knowing those names thanks to IMDb, I got no notes written down, so everything else is just going to be off the top of my dome. That's all I got.
Yeah, I was really impressed by the cast. See, I knew it was going to be different. I was happy that the animation was pretty good
Mm-hmm.
because I watched some of those DC animated movies and I'm kind of disappointed in the animation style. Some of them they're just like really I guess they're just made as cheaply as they can be in some cases. Like if you go with like what was it, Max Fleischer or something back in the day with the Superman cartoons, like some of those were so fluid they are better than most of what we have today, or even the '93 Batman series.
Mm,
A lot of that animation is better than what we've got now. I think we kind of have this in between, kind of in between old American animation and anime,
hmm
but it's not as carefully done as anime.
Yeah, the
Does that
critical
make sense?
drinker. Yeah, he talked about he reviewed an anime movie recently that I'd never heard of. Some obscure anime movie. I don't remember what it was called, but it made me want to watch it. I know it's more like it's not like an adult anime thing. It's like a for kids movie, but apparently really good story and the animation. He talked about it, how well done it is. The style, you just
Mm.
don't see them being made that way. It's like when movies use practical effects anymore because everything is all computer and digital. You can tell a difference, and it's going to be something that's going to hold up really well.
Like Disney, I feel like there's a bit of a cheapness to computer animation, even though sometimes it works. I think it's like anything. You use the style for the kind of story you're telling.
Mm-hmm.
But if you look at Aladdin, or even what was it, Princess and the Frog was the most recent, like the last hand drawn one that they did.
Oh, was it
They
really?
just there's something special about them. I think so, and that was back in 2008 or nine, something like that.
That was actually
Anyway,
really good. It was a really good. I was afraid they were just shoehorning in. Oh, we don't have a black princess, so we have to have one. But it ended up becoming one of my favorite Disney movies. I really loved the music in it, and I'd be able to put that on for my kids, and I
hmm
could like get some work done around the house and just listen to it because it was just fun. I really, really enjoyed that one.
yeah. But anyway, going back to the animation in this, like I had just tried to watch Dark Knight Returns, the animated movie version,
Okay.
and some of the animation is just terrible. I mean, really bad. There's the first fight scene between Batman and the leader of the mutants, and literally there's, I don't know, like a 5 or 7 second sequence where the mutant is beating Batman with a crowbar, but it's just like a 3 frame sequence repeating itself where you're just like, er, and that's all that, like, that's one arm moving. That's it. Where the old Max Fleischer comics, they would show like how they would trace different parts. Sometimes they would use like actual live action footage, like frames from, live action footage of somebody doing something like what Superman was supposed to be doing. So you get a lot more realistic movement because the whole body's moving, not just the arms or not just the legs or whatever.
Okay.
And I felt like in this they put a lot of effort into it. That's all I'm getting into, is that it didn't seem cheap. It seemed like that everything they were doing on purpose. There was actual body language and expressions and like certain looks that carried a message or an emotion that I really liked. And and this is more about the source material, but I liked that it wasn't what you expect.
Agreed.
I even like that a lot of the characters, like, it's clearly this is their Flash,
Mm-hmm.
this is their Aquaman, this is their Wonder Woman, whatever. But the characters are all different, and they don't like go into anything to explain why, or like what they're like. The one that puts the thing in her mouth and she turns into a green screen suit,
Yeah, but then
and
she
she can
can
like fly
like.
and phase through stuff.
Uh huh.
I kind of like that we don't have any explanation of that. It's just an in-world thing.
Yep.
Or they're Martian. No explanation as to what that thing was he was doing when he's spreading out on that floor. It's just, I don't know, it makes it feel more like you're being dropped into a pre-existing thing, not being like, hey, this is this person, this is how they're like the one you already know, you know.
Right. It
But and
was
we
it was very interesting the way they did that. That it's obviously modeled after the Justice League that everybody knows, but like you said, there's no background on any of this. You just have these characters doing their things, and you can tell that they had the one of them's called the Immortal, who I felt was based on, and this is a Marvel character, at least who reminded me of Hercules, who was a very powerful
hmm,
Marvel character, but there might have been one in the DC. I'm sure there was one in the DC universe that was similar to that. But just yeah, nothing. They didn't go into any of that. They went into some mostly the background goes for Omni-Man because you've got him and his
mm-hmm,
son and this is what the world revolves around. And the way the story unfolded was you've got Invincible, that's Mark Grayson. The Invincible is the superhero name that he picks, and just some really interesting things that unraveled based on certain, you could say, certain threads that he pulled on, and things that he tried to do and failed at. It was or tried to do and succeeded. I really liked at one point one of the first bad guys that he fights is this some like hopped up half cyborg guy or something who has a big laser
Yeah.
cannon for an arm, and the cops are like he like shoots through a building, like just blows this hole in it, and these cops are shooting him and bullets are bouncing off of him, and he turns around and be like, "Did you guys not just see what I did over there? Is this really you doing this?" There was some funny stuff to it. It, I mean, hats off
And
to
that
Prime.
character even comes back later.
Mm-hmm.
He tries it again. He comes back later, and Invincible comes back to fight him again, and he's like, "Oh no, I'm ready this time! Like, come on, let's do it!" Like the cyborg guy,
Uh huh.
and it's kind of it's like almost a cheerful adversary kind of relationship, which I've kind of I don't know. I find that funny. I feel like there's kind of a lot of that in DC, at least, that's implied. You know, some of the villains are like, "Okay, come on, let's do this. Like, this is our thing."
Yeah.
I mean, not just the weird Joker loves Batman thing, but you know, some of them are like, "All right, come on, like it's time to tangle with Batman, Robin, Nightwing, whoever."
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they brought in some interesting characters, some interesting bad guys, some interesting heroes with some different powers. You have this character called Monster Girl, and she can turn into this really powerful monster, like this big, almost like a Hulk. She hulks out,
Yeah,
but every time she does it, she gets younger, like physically younger. And she's like, "I'm 25, but she looks
yeah,
like
because it's a
she's
curse, not a power.
14." That's right. She's
Right.
cursed versus it being, being a mutant or something like that. That was really interesting. Like, all right, you get to have a battle, but now you need to wait a year before you have another. I mean, that was really interesting, and that seems unsustainable as a superhero is concerned.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I don't know how that would work, but that was interesting. Some of the different characters in this. Adam Eve in the beginning, she has this power that she can project, almost like Green Lantern, project these force things. But then all of a sudden,
Yeah,
almost
it's
like
kind of
six or seven episodes in, that changes from just projecting these force walls and things to she can use it to fly, with these little force things around her hands and feet, to she can manipulate the world around her, and she can make a door appear or change a door into a wall or build things or make things grow, and like that's like super powerful.
it's like Doctor Manhattan level stuff. Yeah,
Just about. I don't, what you saw her do in the beginning with some of the when the aliens were trying to come in, and it was this big alien invasion to come take over Earth, and she was doing stuff there. I think using the not these Green Lantern force type construct powers, but using the other powers to do things would have been much more effective in being able to manipulate the
mm-hmm.
world. Like, oh, well, I'm just going to turn the street you're standing on into lava. All right, well, now you're all dead. Like, there's so many more,
Yeah.
molecular manipulation things you could have done.
Well, it was also really interesting to see how the older heroes kind of were uh, might have a similar level of power, but were using it a different way. Kind of like how Robot suggested that Invincible might be underestimating his own abilities. And it seems like he just doesn't think of using his power the same way as Omni-Man. We said we're doing spoilers, right?
Oh yeah, from the beginning, yes.
Okay. Because, like, when Omni-Man goes through that portal and destroys that whole planet, which is a fantastic scene. Like, I
Oh,
love the music.
so
Like
good.
that scene where he's holding up the like that, I don't know, that chunk of earth,
Yep,
whatever it is,
big
that
chunk
chunk
of
of
ground,
ground.
yes.
Yeah. It's like Sokovia. He's
Mm-hmm.
holding it up. And that look where the light is just glaring off his eyes a little bit as he's looking down at the scientists who are in that thing, like, I guess, opening a portal for him or whatever. Like, that was just really, really well done. But it's one of those things where Invincible wouldn't have thought of flying like that and just using his body to, like, ram through shit. Like, he would have been trying to probably try to use something else, use some kind of weapon, like develop, I don't know, another way of doing it. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
It seems to be a lot of like the points that the older heroes were kind of making is you have to like find a way to use your powers in a complementary way or use it in a way that you don't expect to, like flying super fast or for a long time isn't a matter of just like pushing as hard as you can. It's a matter of like pushing and then relaxing and pushing and relaxing. It's a cycle.
Mm-hmm.
I
It
really like that it wasn't just like, hey, you're just gonna get stronger. Like there's even a point where Invincible's like, you mean I have super strength and I still have to work out? And Omni-Man's like, yeah, like this isn't easy.
like you are this way because you're from Viltrum was the name of their planet. So he's a
Mm-hmm.
what did they call him?
Viltrumite.
Viltrumite, yes. But because that's who you are as a person, kind of like a human being. If you want to be a really strong human being, you know, everybody if you grow up and you have an average life. So your average strength. You want to be more than that, you got to work out. Like let's say you come from a line of sports stars and you might be more physically capable than most people. If you want to be better than that, you got to work at it. It's not just oh, well, because this is where I come from, I'm just obviously better than everyone else. No, you want to be at the top of your game, you got to put forth effort.
I don't know. It did a good job, I think, of humanizing everybody in it, which is something that a lot of these stories seem to kind of fail to do. I mean, the bad Superman thing is something we've had a lot of, like particularly with the boys. You've got Homelander, and they do some stuff to kind of humanize him or to show like how he was raised that made him the way he is. I think this was even better though because it has Omni Man living as a human, like
Mm-hmm.
living among people. But then he explains his perspective. He's like, "Do you have any idea how long we live? Like, yeah, I love your mother, but she's like a pet,
Right?
right?" Which
Mm-hmm.
I read this article a long time ago. That's how Spock would have looked at Kirk because Vulcans live
Yes,
so much longer. It's like he can love him. They can be like best friends, just like your dog is your best friend, but he's going to live several times longer. So, it's kind of somewhat of a different relationship.
absolutely. That was the things that they added into this, or the way the world is, because this is based on a comic. They didn't just make this up for Prime. They took an existing property and they have adapted it. And I was talking to you about it, and whether or not my first reaction is I really want to read the comic now, but I don't know if that's actually the case. Like I told you, I didn't watch the second season of The Boys because I've read the comics, and they changed so much. Like they got mostly the heart of it right, but with the things they changed, they could not be, and they were graphic in The Boys, but they could not be the level of graphic that there was in the comics. They could not get away with the kind of things they got away with in the comics, and because of that, it didn't hit me the same. So that being
Yeah.
said, I don't know if I want to read the Invincible comics because I'm afraid if I do that, it's going to make me not enjoy the show as much. And I really did enjoy the show. There were certain scenes. There's a scene with Omni Man, Invincible, and a subway train that was incredible. Absolutely just jaw dropping. I loved it. And it reminded me more of the Boys comics that I read years ago than almost anything the Boys show, the first season of the Boys did in that show. It was just gruesome and really, really well done.
Yeah.
What a point that it proved.
Yeah, I agree with that. Even the scenes where Homelander's in front of that crowd and he's imagining lasering down everybody that's there
Mm-hmm.
because they're chanting against him or whatever. Like that's what I thought of when the subway scene happened. Like that subway scene was so much better. It was so much more impactful than just
Oh
like
man,
having this imagined thing that happens.
yeah.
I mean, and not just because it really happened in the universe of the show, but because of just the way it was so much more creative than just like laser everybody down. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
The way they went about things was so much more creative, and I'm sure a lot of that is because of the medium, cartoon versus live action.
That's fair.
But it's so good. It's really, really well done, and the characters are really, for the most part, really likable. I yeah, I don't know. I don't really have any complaints or problems with any of the characters that were in it or how they were portrayed or anything like that. I
I
mean,
was afraid from the very beginning that it might be a little woke. I was afraid with like in the very beginning before Mark Grayson Invincible gets his powers, his best friend and there's a comment about his best friend being gay, and that was fine. Like I don't I'm people want to insert certain things into the media, into whatever their property is, but as long as it just fits with the story, it was great. I had no problem with his best friend. His best friend was a good character in the
Yeah, it
show.
had no yeah, it had no impact on the story really. I mean, he was just a character that happened to be a trait about him. It wasn't something that they brought up or there was like a huge deal or anything like that. And he wound up being a character I sympathized with a lot because of the stuff he went through with his boyfriend and that whole situation. And that guy who was that was a good example in DC. Argus would have picked him up. The guy who was kidnapping people and turning them into these cyborgs. Argus would
Mm-hmm.
have picked him up and then locked him away and kept him as like a Suicide Squad type person. That's all we would have known. We wouldn't have gotten the Cecil scene where he's like, this guy's a monster, but we need him. Like, we can't let this talent go to waste. Like, we have to use this where we can.
Mm-hmm.
And there's even that scene where, unrelated to that, the wife, Omni-Man's wife, is in there, and she's like, "I hate you. You know, I've always hated you, Cecil." And he's like, "Yeah, I know, I hate me too," because he knows like what he has to do.
Yeah, it's not always easy to make those decisions.
Yeah,
Yeah, there was. I mean, when they were the episode you're talking about, when they go to this college, they're checking things out, and he's sitting on the bench with his Invincible, sitting on the bench with his girlfriend, and she says something about, "Oh, there's this, social justice class here, a really good program." And I'm like, but that what they mentioned that one thing. So for those who really are put off by stuff like that, there was no hitting you over the head with anything. All right, so she mentioned that. Whatever. So,
yeah,
I mean, you can go ahead and take that class and see what kind of job you can get out of it. Good luck. But I didn't feel hit over the head by anything. Everything that was part of it, I thought she played a great character as his girlfriend. He's trying to do all these things. He can't show up on time. He just skips out on dates or things because he's being a superhero. He's trying to save lives and do things. But with a secret identity, he can't tell her anything. By the time he comes out to her and says, "Oh, I'm this, I'm this," she's like, "Yeah, I know. Why? Because I'm not an idiot." It was a lot of the decisions they
yeah. And
made,
then she's just pissed because it took him so long.
right? And she has a right to be.
Yeah,
It was really well done. I liked a lot of the decisions they made for this, and it's a question of I don't know what decision was made for just the TV show versus how it was done in the comic. But as far as I'm concerned, that doesn't matter because I just really enjoyed what I watched.
yeah, yeah. I don't know. I don't know how I feel about it being a comic or if I want to try to read it because I read most of The Walking Dead, the comic,
Mm-hmm.
which was a little different and a lot more brutal than the show. But then there were, yeah, I don't know. A little bit of the story diverged in a certain way, and it's like I just kind of gave up on both. Like the comic at one point got too depressing and too brutal, so I just quit. It's like I'm not enjoying this anymore. And then the show was just a drag, so I quit watching that too. And it's like I want to avoid that happening with this, and I like the show pretty well, and
Mm-hmm.
I'll be annoyed if the comic is that much better. Does that make any sense?
Yeah, absolutely.
So
I I 100% get that.
but I really liked the universe that they're setting up. I like that there are characters that aren't explained, like that lion creature thing that like kicks Invincible's ass, and then he's like,
Oh,
"Ah, there's nobody worthy on this planet," and just leaves. Who
yeah.
was that? Is he going to come back? He must come back.
Oh, he better come back. He was great.
I mean, and then you have characters like the Immortal, which I don't know what he's supposed to be. Like, there is an immortal character in DC called Vandal Savage, who
Okay.
has been around since like caveman times, but he doesn't have superpowers or anything. But this guy was like a Superman type character.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's why he reminded me of Hercules. That Hercules in the Marvel universe, he's really powerful. He's
Yeah.
he's one of the most powerful ones, but he's been around forever. It's more of a Greek pantheon type of character that they just adapted to the Marvel comics, and that's who it reminded me of. But you know nothing about him. There was a couple of flashes of him in different timelines, but that's it. That's all you
Yeah.
got.
When he's being brought back. Yeah,
Hmm. Oh,
but
and
it was
speaking of
good. Like it was enough to like whet your appetite.
yeah, speaking of being brought back, in the very first episode, you have these two characters, the Mauler twins, the two big blue guys. They were great. Absolutely,
They
they
were great the whole way
e-
through. They were great.
they were great. Even before the end of the first episode, which really really hooked me, they were fun, and they made it fun. I liked what was going on with them. I liked seeing them throughout the course, the arguing back and forth. It was that was a fun dynamic.
Yeah, I like the scene in prison where their like robot is orchestrating their escape, and he has it so when the guard reaches through at the food, both of the things open and they're not supposed to.
Right?
And the one blue guy and the guard are just looking at each other, and Mahler's like, "Sorry, Steve," and just pulls his arm through and
Yeah.
knocks him out.
I mean,
And then
I
he
thought
goes
he
to
killed
find
him.
the other one, and he's eating a pot pie, and he's like,
Right, because he knocks him out and he escapes out of his room that way. And then he like checks it. Ah, it was pot pie day. It was.
"Yeah,
It was fun. Some of the characters, some of the decisions they made, it's just really well done for this. I don't like. I'm trying to do my best to not talk about everybody specifically or spoil anything terribly, but the way everything turned out, I do want to talk about kind of the climax of the show, and I don't want to completely spoil it, but I will say it did not end in the way I expected it to, based on
no." It ended
years
very
of
abruptly, and it was like,
right, based on years of watching, you know, two. They tried to make it sound Cecil, I guess, tried to make it sound like Invincible is the only one who can stop his dad, which in a way ended up being true, yet not in the way that we expected. And I really enjoyed that. I really enjoyed how that turned out because that makes sense. How that went down, how those two interacted with each other, that I just it absolutely made sense. That how all of that
yeah,
played out, I was like, that's exactly how it should have.
yeah. There's even that one of the first scenes where, um, yeah, one of the first like when Invincible first realizes what's going on, and he's like, "No, I have to stop you. Like, I have to stop you." I'm looking at him, and it's like he's muscular and stuff, but he is so slim. And Omni Man is built like a monster,
Like a
like with the
monster.
same powers, assuming the same. Like you're talking about, it's your species that's like
Mm-hmm.
this.
Yeah.
So there are different variances within that species. And it's like Omni Man is a monster. Like there's just no way. Like I'm not gonna buy it if Invincible beats him, and he totally doesn't even stand a chance.
No, it doesn't. Like we talked about in our last review, the Winter Soldier. He's a super soldier going up against other super soldiers, but they're not super soldiers. They're just people who got injected with the super soldier serum, and so they're really strong now, but they don't have 100 plus years worth of assassin experience. Like,
Mm-hmm.
so it's not really like it looks like an even play, but it's really not even close.
Yeah, it's like me versus a seal.
Yeah, right?
Like they have like I may be big and strong, but I don't have like years and years of combat training and like being the most elite soldier there is, and that's basically what he was. He was Hydra's like go-to hitman for
Yeah.
decades.
And Omni-Man, he's, as we said, a Viltrumite, like one of the elite of their military force.
Mm-hmm.
And he got sent on a mission, the same with a lot of other ones, into a lot of different planets. And how this show ends, how it's everything that happens on Earth, and you think, oh my God, this is so big. It's not. This is such a small thing compared to what's going on across the entire universe. The scope of it, it's almost incredible. And it's
Yeah,
really interesting to see where they might be able to take this from here.
yeah, and thinking about how powerful Omni Man is compared to everybody else,
Oh my
but there
gosh.
are people on these planets that can stand up to them. Like I was
Mm-hmm.
thinking about that when they have that end scene with him and the god, like they're on the moon, him and Seth Rogen's character, and it's like and
Alan,
he and
Alan
Seth.
the alien.
Oh my god, yeah, okay. Alan is saying like there's stuff going on, like they think they might be able to resist them and start to push back to this empire or whatever. And it's like that kind of does make sense because Alan is invincible Omni Man level.
Mm-hmm.
Invincible is getting to Omni Man level. If you put the the Guardians of the Globe or whatever their name was almost killed Omni Man. Even though they lost, he still almost died, and he might have died if nothing else had happened.
Had they not been taken
But
by surprise.
yeah,
That's
right,
that's
right,
one of
right.
the things that caused that to happen. Had they been a force, using their teamwork to their advantage from the beginning, that I still don't know if it would have turned out differently, but it probably would have been a little bit different of a fight.
Yeah, like if the Green Ghost had like dropped him halfway into the ground and like unfazed, and then the rest of them just wailed on him or whatever. There's a lot of hesitance. You could see it, which is
Right.
good because that's how it would really be. Like if somebody you trusted for like 20 years suddenly attacked you, you'd be like, "What's going on?" Like you wouldn't want to just try to kill them right away. But it was the Immortal who was like, "It's him or us," right? Wasn't it him or
Yeah.
was it War Moment?
He
I
was
don't know.
talking to her, it's him or
One of
us,
them
and it
was
was
like,
him.
it's
Yeah.
it's him or us. Yeah, but I mean, I wanted to see more about the Immortal. I'd like to see more about all those characters. I think my favorite character though was Damien Darkblood,
I was getting ready to
who
talk about
I'm
him.
not sure. He really reminded me of Etrigan from DC,
Mm-hmm.
who is also a demon character. I don't know. He's probably just loosely based on him or something, but I mean, it was. I just really like that character. I like it was Clancy Brown's character.
Mm-hmm.
I like the way he voiced him. I like the way he was animated. I like the way he was a little tubby. Like I don't know. It was just they didn't make him like this perfect idealized comic book thing. So many of them seemed real in some way.
Yeah, it was. I liked him a lot. I was getting ready to talk about him, and him always being skeptical of everything and not just taking anything anybody said for granted. The way everything came
Mm-hmm.
together from one episode to another, just I liked how all of it coalesced from one episode to another into this big, long, cohesive story that was something that I wanted to keep going back to. I wanted, when one episode was over, I can understand why you just binged it all in one sitting, because it was great.
Yep. Yeah, that's the best compliment I can give is that I watched it all in one sitting. Like who does that anymore?
I, I mean, obviously, people like us. I mean, I would if I had time. Oh
I
my god,
guess.
time.
I mean, people do it, but I mean, there's so little that seems like it's worth binging anymore. Like
That's
there's
fair.
stuff that's entertaining, but not so much that it's that you can just watch it constantly. I mean, a lot of stuff is really episodic, where there's little sort of plot threads that go through multiple episodes, but it's a lot of shows are kind of a monster of the week sort of thing. It's one of the things that I liked about Superman and Lois versus some of the CW shows. Like a lot of the CW shows kind of had a monster of the week thing going on. Superman and Lois is kind of more a continuing story, which
Got
I
you.
think really sets it apart from a lot of the CW shows. And the fact that they kind of removed it from the rest of those. Like they actually, pulled it like 15, 16 years into the future of that universe. But they also made it, a story that builds upon itself, not just, well, in this week there's this kind of monster. Like when
Mm-hmm.
in the Flash, it was like, and this week he's gonna run faster in this way. And next week he's gonna run faster in that way, and that's how he's gonna beat stuff.
Yeah, I mean, in order to make the Flash interesting, he's got to do more than run fast. He's got to use. That's one of the things I liked about the cartoon. He used his powers in ways that wasn't just running fast. I
Mm-hmm.
mean, yeah, he can run fast. I get it, but being able to do things in other ways, that was cool. I'd never thought about the Flash doing some of the things that I watched him do there, and that's what makes it unique. That's what's going to make Invincible learning about his powers, like when his dad was training him, and he talked about, we don't fly because we push off the ground and we start flying around with, how a bird flies through the air. We can push off nothing. And so when we fight, our means of leverage in a fight is anything. And so that changes how we get to fight. And that was really interesting. I really like that.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I don't really have anything else to say about it.
No,
I really
as we
like the
said,
show. I think that all in one sitting, it was a little much. The gore, like
mm,
that was the only bit that got a little bit old. I was like, yeah, I get it. He's bad. Like, oh, there we go. He does the whole subway thing, which is like really different. Like, I mean, that was a really good supervillain moment.
hmm
But it's still like, I mean, we've seen this in the boys, but I mean, it's just because I watched them all back to back. That's I guess the only complaint I would have is it might wear on you a little bit if you watch it all like just one after the other without hardly even getting up. But I mean, it was told really well. The characters were really interesting. The world seemed real. They've clearly set something up with that guy who became like the kingpin of that universe. The one who
Uh-huh.
was trying to get Invincible to help him take down Robot Head or whatever his name was, or Machine Head or
Machine
whatever.
Head. Yeah,
Yeah, and
that
then
was a whole interesting thing that I really liked.
yeah, and Omni-Man was even telling him like, "This guy's playing you." And he's like, "But I have to do what's right." And he's like, "All right," but he's playing you, and he totally was. And I love it.
Yep.
I love that it's like, yeah, this criminal, he was lying to you. He was using you.
I mean, not for terrible means or terrible purpose per se. He he's still going to run a criminal empire instead of this machine head guy, and he'll probably still do bad things. But he might start to do better things for the neighborhood and not let people live in slums, and he might be a little more altruistic than the guy who he deposed. I mean, in
Maybe.
the world, we do that shit all the time. Militaries go in and take out one dictator just to transplant basically another who might align with whatever our current policies are at the time. And so we see it as a little more favorable than whoever the last guy was. So I'm interested to see where that goes. There's some other storylines in this that I'm interested to see where it went. I thought the Adam Eve, her father, wasn't a big fan of that character. That was a bit, as far as, I don't know, the thing I talked about with being woke or this or that. I thought that was the most heavy-handed thing that they did, and I'm sick of that idea. The idea that, and this is the same thing with the movie like Frozen. Your daughter has some sort of powers, but you don't want her to use those powers. You just want to lock her away. And he tried to say because, he wants to keep her safe for this, but he just seemed like kind of an asshole. He didn't seem like I'm just scared for you.
Yeah, he did seem like kind of an asshole, but he also, I bought that he was worried about her. Like the Guardians of the Globe were just killed. He's like, if all of them can die, you can die. Like your powers don't mean shit when there's somebody else with the same powers. It's like you're saying if everybody's like that,
Mm.
then your powers don't mean anything anymore. But it was a little heavy handed in the like, no, your place is in the home, like you're gonna get married and have babies and whatever. That was a little, I don't know that it was to push like any particular message other than like you have to follow your own path. But yeah, I get what you mean.
Yeah, that was one of the only gripes I had with this whole thing. Realistically, everything else, it was fine. I just enjoyed the show. So, all right, Halligan's, where I think we're coming down to it once again, where we say, is this a watch or not a watch? And I bet even if neither one of us said specifically what we thought, based on what we just talked about, you can probably guess what we're going to say right now. Ryan, how about you? Is this a watch or not a watch?
Watch.
Yeah,
Totally a watch. 100%.
definitely a watch. This was fun. I even recommended it to one of my a boss who I have at work. This guy whose name happens to be Ryan as well. Nice fellow. And I said, hey, I asked him, hey, do you have Amazon Prime? He said yes. I was like, check this show out. It's worth a watch. And I just watched the first episode. At the end of the first episode, if you don't want to watch anymore, I get it. But I have a feeling you're going to get hooked the same way we got hooked. It was well done.
Yeah, that was really well done. And you knew right away whether or not it was going to be for you.
Mm-hmm.
And anyway, yeah, great show. That's all I've got. So if anybody out there wants to reach out to us, you haven't yet, but we are on Twitter at Movie Howl. I'm on Twitter at ManPanda. We have an email, moviehowl@gmail.com. We want to know what you think, what you like, what you don't like, what you want us to do, change, stop doing, whatever. Do you want the episode shorter, longer? Probably not longer. Tell us. Let us know.
Yep. I've enjoyed it. I enjoyed doing this with you. I hope everybody enjoys listening to us. Halligan's, thanks once again. I've been Joe.
And I'm Ryan.
And we're out.